Episode 4, IPHC is gathering in Mobile, Alabama for our general conference. My name is Brad, and I've been walking through all of the reports that have been sent to us. Now, here's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of giving you an overview. I'm not like going word for word, line for line. I'm just kind of hitting the highlights just to give you an understanding of what to expect when you get to general conference. If you have not registered, please do so. IPHC.org. Make sure you register for the general conference, 30th general conference. We're meeting in Mobile, Alabama, July the 15th through the 17th. It's going to be a great time together. Well, we have walked through most of the reports, and today, in this episode, we're starting with the Bylaws report. And really just going to focus on the big section of the Bylaws report, which is really Article 3, organizational structure. What does it mean? What's going to happen at the general church level? We talked about the nominations committee. I kind of gave you 4 scenarios, and this is where those 4 scenarios would come from. We talked about the commission report, the study on our structure, our governance, and our finances. That was a heavy report. Make sure you read that, because of that report, we have been given these proposed bylaws. These bylaws will be open for discussion as we go into the business sessions there at General Conference, and it should be a fun time together. One of the things that kept popping up to me, which I really found fascinating, was this phrase, amenable. Amenable kept coming up throughout the bylaws, because they really wanted to make sure people understood that when you're amenable to someone, what does it mean? So, like, what do you need to do? And I got this definition. This is the definition they used back in Article 1, Section C, or Article 1, Part C. And then in this section, and it's on page 84, and it says this: the senior pastor is amenable to the conference executive council. But this is the key word. In the IPHC bylaws, amenable is defined as readily yielding, submissive, cooperative, and able to be directed by one in authority. That is a great line. If anything that the Bylaws Committee has done that should just fire you up, is that they really emphasize the amenable. And like, it was just over and over again when they talked about structure, when they talked about the senior pastor, when they talked about the conference bishop, when they talked about the executives. It was all about being amenable, that we are submissive to one another. I think it's scripture, right? Jesus even said that, submit to one another in love. So I think this is a great starting point for anyone who steps into leadership, anyone who is a lead pastor. Doesn't mean you have to agree, okay? Doesn't mean you can't make a case, doesn't mean you can't argue a point, but it just means at the end of the day, our role is to, as much as it depends on you and I, to live peaceably with each other, even if we don't agree totally. And I think that's a great line in our bylaws. Well, let's just talk about those today. As I think one of the things they did, and if you have the bylaws, they gave a great organizational chart. It's really just the way that they had redesigned everything. When we looked at the commission report, at the last video, we noticed that there was some diagnosis that was given, and the diagnosis was that the church is in decline, and that the pastor should be the priority, and we need to have leadership alignment, that we should not be working in silos. We should all be working together. And as I've kind of combed through the bylaws, I think that's the intent. The intent is, you don't want to, again, you can't force people to work together, but I think if you're going to walk into these roles, if we're going to elect individuals into these roles, there should be an expectation that they are going to work together for the betterment of the whole denomination. And so when we make elections, when we make decisions, we don't do those decisions based on personalities. We make it determine on what's best for the church, for the whole denomination. That's what we're doing when we go to General Conference. And so the Bylaws Committee has worked tirelessly to take elements from the commission report, to put them into this document to help us as a organization, I guess really as an organization, for us to flourish. That's what we want to see. We want to see our organizations flourish. We want to see our conferences flourish. We want to see our local churches flourish. That means we want to see our pastors flourish. We want to see the members of the church flourish. And I think it's all going to be it's not just about structure, but it's also about leaders. It's also about where we're heading as a denomination and what the future looks like. One person, we were talking about leaders in our church, and I got this line. I thought it was a great line. It said, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, most people say 20 years ago would be a great time to plant a tree. So when's the best time to plant a tree? Right now. And it's the same thing about leadership. When's the best time to raise up leaders? I should have done it 20 years ago. But when's the best time to raise up leaders? It's now. And so what we have to do as a denomination, we have to put a structure in place that helps raise up leaders, raise up pastors, raise up people so that we can make disciples. That's what the heartbeat of the church is. We want to do great work in the mission field. We want to do great work in planting churches. We want to do great work in discipling people. And this new structure is giving us something to look at. It's giving us an opportunity to say, okay, is this really the thing that we need to do that's going to help turn this around? And I think that's what's before us. Does this really turn things around? So when I look at it, I see a couple of great things that are really important. I think there's accountability, and I think there is this word I used earlier. We start this video off with being amenable, being submissive, easy to work with, being able to take direction, being able to say, okay, I can align with the goals and values and the objectives that we are putting in place. The other thing I love about what's kind of been proposed is that we're looking at this from a high level, from the top level, from the general level, that there are going to be goals and there are going to be objectives and there's going to be key indicators, key performance indicators that help determine if we are heading in the right direction. I think that's so key. One of the hard things about pastoring a church sometimes is the only time that we can think we're doing good is if its attendance is up and the money's up. Well, there's more indicators than just attendance and money. That's a result. That's a result. People in the church and money in the church is a result of what? And we have to look back at what are we doing to get the result. And if we don't like the results that we're getting, which was obvious through the commission report, then is this structure helping us to change that direction? So as you look at it, as you go through it, I want you to have that in mind. I want you to begin to think as a pastor, as a leader, okay, how is this going to affect my life? How is this going to affect our churches? How is this going to affect the way we do ministry? And for some churches, as I've learned, there are some things that what I thought was great ministry 15 years ago, I had to learn a whole new way of doing things. I've been coached. I found ways to do things better. And I think from the Bylaws Committee and the Commission Report, they went out and they found other organizations that are doing things differently than we are, and they made those suggestions to us. And the question is, are we as a denomination willing to be coached? Are we as a denomination willing to make a step of faith and to shift into something that's different? Because anytime something new comes on the horizon, we're going to be critical about it. I know you are, I am, we all do. So the question today is, will this structure work? And the answer is we don't know. Honestly, we don't know. But I think in this new structure, there are some things that could be very beneficial. And one of those things is seeing the alignment that's taking place with our top 4 officials, with the Council of Bishops. And I think that's one of the key things. So what's being proposed, just in a nutshell, is 2 things. That we as the General Conference, that we're going to elect a presiding bishop and this new position called the Assistant Superintendent. So those are the only 2 people that the General Conference will get to elect during the week of July 15th through the 17th of 2026. We'll elect a bishop and this new position, Assistant Superintendent. And then could be weeks, months, whatever, giving them time, that the 2 individuals will then go through and they'll interview and they'll find 2 people that they like, one for world missions, one for this new church, this new job called church ministries, and they'll submit their names as nominations for the Council of Bishops to elect. And again, I'm using that word elect because the Council of Bishops is electing those 2 individuals. They'll be given the same title as bishop. They're the executive directors over world missions and church ministries, and they will then serve 4 years for the church. Now, that's new to us. We're used to electing 4 people. And so we're going to have to adjust if we accept this proposal, we adjust and we say, okay, we're going to elect 2 people. We're going to trust them to put in people that are going to be amenable, accountable, and be able to do their job, all in alignment for where we're heading as a denomination. So that's the voting structure piece that we have. Now, when I look at the organizational chart that they gave us, we see there's a governmental arm and there's an executive arm. The governmental arm is the Council of Bishops. Again, that's the second. It's the highest form of leadership that we have when we're outside of the General Conference. So the Council of Bishops is the governmental arm of the church, and they have several committees underneath them. They have the Executive Committee that's going to include the 4 bishops, the 4 directors that we have: the presiding bishop, the assistant superintendent, the director of world missions, and the director of church ministries. They will serve on the executive committee along with several other people from the Council of Bishops and a local pastor, and a couple local pastors and other members of that committee. There's a nominations committee. There's this new committee this year that they proposed called the Committee on the Officers. And so what they're calling the 4 elected individuals, they're calling them the officers of the IPHC. And so, yes, they're the 4 bishops: presiding bishop, assistant superintendent. You can call him bishop, world missions and church ministries, but they are the officers of the IPHC. And there's going to be a committee on them that's going to be checking on them, their health. It's a very confidential committee just to make sure these individuals are doing well, making sure their health is well, making sure their mental health is well, making sure their spiritual health is well, and then helping to even realign them if there are some things that they need to get better in. This committee is supposed to help with that. Then there's this conference advancement committee that we've been having. This is to really help our conferences. The assistant superintendent is going to be kind of leading that committee to make sure that all of our conferences are aligning with the goals and the directions and the objectives that are coming down from the top. I think this is very important that we're trying to get it. I really see this as kind of streamlining things. Like, hey, if the goal is this, and it's not just the general goal, it's also the goal of the conference, and it's also the goal of the church. So it's kind of coming down so that we're all trying to maintain and to help reach these goals together. And then, of course, there's the finance committee. One of the things that's come out through the report is that they're wanting to put more money into the hands of our conferences. And so the proposal from the financial side is that currently, this is how it works. Currently, whenever you as a pastor or as a licensed minister, whatever license you have, and you are tithing to the conference, when you tithe to the conference, they were taking 10% of your tithe and they were sending that to the general conference. And then when churches were giving to the conference, they were taking 55% of that amount and they were sending that to the conference. So the proposal is that when you tithe to your conference, that none of the money leaves the conference. Your full tithe stays at the conference. And then they're going to take, whenever the churches give money to the conference, then instead of sending 55%, they're going to send 50%. So the denomination is taking, from what they have estimated, just a little bit under $1.4 million a year that they're going to be losing in revenue. Let's just use it that way in a business standpoint. They're losing roughly $1.4 million in revenue to run the general church up in Oklahoma City. So there's this combination that's happening of EVUSA and Discipleship Ministries, and it's all part of this reduction because they're preparing for this $1.4 million reduction each year in their budget. The cool thing is they're not going to do it all in one moment. They're going to kind of space it out. And so it's not really until January of 2028 that it's fully in place. And so they'll kind of stagger the changes over the next year and a half. So, but in that, the main office, what we call the Global Ministry Center, will have to realign budgets, realign jobs, realign how they function, how they do ministry. And so this streamlining is not just affecting, in a sense, the conference and the local church is affecting what's coming down from the general conference or the general headquarters in Oklahoma City. So they're having some big adjustments. Even while we're going to be at the at general conference, there's going to be people who are going to be listening, and as things get voted on, it's going to shift budgets as we go along. So just be aware of that we are making a decision. If we agree to this proposal, that we are making a decision to cut significant amount of money from the general headquarters. But we're also increasing money into our conferences. Now, every conference is different. This is going to be an argument that's out there. We have some small conferences and large conferences. So larger conferences, this could be substantial. This amount of money could be substantial to have back in their hands, to be used to help take care of pastors, maybe, do things with churches and helping churches revitalize and helping pastors get through some seasons. But for some conferences, it's not a significant amount of money, because of just their size. And so it's not all equal, even though it's everyone's kind of, the cut's the same for each conference. It's not equal money across the way. So, and I'm not going to call out any kind of conferences. So I think it's really a matter of what's best for the whole. And, does alignment really help us as a church? I would say yes. Alignment helps us. Is this the right way? That's the question before us today. And so we're looking at trying to empower the Council of Bishops even more so to hold the Executive Committee, the Nominations Committee, the Committee on the Officers, the Conference Advancement Committee, and hold those all accountable, make sure we're all going in the right direction. Then on the other side, we have what you would call the executive arm of, let's get things done. This is the General Ministry Cabinet. So you have the Council of Bishops handles all the governance of the church. Then you have the General Ministry Cabinet, which is actually executing ministry. They are producing the resources. They are setting the standard. They're saying, hey, this is the standard for what it is to be a church plant in our denomination. This is the standard for what it is if you want to be a licensed minister, this is the standard you have to go through. You got to come through one of our schools. You got to go through one of our school ministries. You got to use this program. They're setting the standard in everything we do, from world missions to church ministries to what the conference is supposed to do. So they're going to be doing those things. So I think that's going to kind of bring a unified leadership approach to our denomination. So I think it's a lot to think through. I'm going to talk a little bit in the next video, just talk a little bit about the responsibilities of each of the members that are being elected, especially this new job, the church ministries job. I think that's going to be a tough job. I think that's going to be a tough job, and I think the new assistant superintendent, they have a tough job. Those two have some major responsibilities, and they're carrying a big weight. World missions is world missions, and world missions is like functioning, it's making an impact, and of course it's everything that's happening overseas. But what's happening in the U.S.? How are we going to plant churches? How are we going to revitalize churches? How are we going to get people discipled? How are we going to get boys ministry, girls ministry, men's ministry, women's ministry? That's a lot in that portfolio. Hispanic ministry, I can go on, and then of course this assistant job, which has a job description, but it's really about making sure that it's executing everything that's coming down from the top, that we're saying, hey, these are the values, these are the alignments, this is where we're heading as a church. So anyway, some thoughts there, and we'll talk at the next video about some of these jobs. See you soon.